Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to week 10 on business technology. This week we have plenty of exercises that are going to allow us understand how the payrolls work in Colombia and how can we establish an amortization table for loans. This is more or less what we do in real life, and you will understand some of the rules and laws according to national law about payrolls, employees, and employers, okay? So the first thing you got to do this week, and this is the video where you are going to be introduced into this topic, is payrolls and loans in Colombia, okay? The first thing is the payroll research. Here in this activity, you will have to answer all these things according to a website that I will give you in a few minutes, and I'll show you how to get it. Remember that most of this information is in Spanish because we are making a reference to Colombian law, but it is pretty much the same, okay? So things like, what is the minimum wage in Colombia for this year? What is the minimum wage in Colombia for this year on a daily basis? These are things that you need to establish using a Google Sheet or an Excel spreadsheet. I'm gonna make clear that it can be on a Google Sheet or an Excel sheet, okay? Okay. And with that said, we need to establish this. So if you go to the link that shows on the assignment, it will take you to this website. Here, there is an explanation of each thing that you need to know as an employer in order to pay salaries. So the first thing is understanding what is the minimum wage this year. This year is 737,717. This is what is paid as the minimum wage. It is a 48-hour a week duty and divided into 8 hours a day. Okay? This is according to Lay 50. Now, every day would be 24,590. Working 8 hours a day, okay? So we just divide this by 30 and we get our result. You will also need to make, later on, all the payroll spreadsheet with all this information. Now I'll show you in a minute, okay? So we divide this by 30 days and we get the minimum wage a day. This is gonna be important later on. Then we have the minimum wage per hour. This would be divided 8. We have the minimum wage an hour if the person is working night shift, okay? The night shift starts at 10 p.m., okay? And it goes all the way to 6 a.m. So it is a 35% increase of whatever is the hour, the ordinary hour of that employee. Then there's something important about transportation. Transportation is a subsidy that the employer gives his employees if and only if this person earns up to 2 minimum wages a month, okay? So if the person earns more than 2 wages a month, then the employer does not have to give him this subsidy, okay? It's 83,140 independent from whatever he earns, just if he earns less than 2 salaries a month, okay? So this is the day, okay? So if you want to divide this by 30, you will get this as a day because as an employer, you want to save every single peso for the month, okay? Even though you will only hand in an amount that is less than what you need to provide, okay? So this is something that you need to save day by day or month by month in order to do it throughout the year. Another important thing is about extra hours. Extra hours, here we have extra hours. They're ordinary extra hours. This is because, let's say you have a shift from 8 to 3 p.m. Every hour from 3 p.m. is an extraordinary hour. Okay, so there's a 25% increase, okay, in this. Now we have the night extra hour, which is a 75%. So let's say you work up to 10 p.m. Every hour after 10 p.m. will be charged as a 75% increase. Then we have Sundays and holidays. Now, Sundays and holidays also have a 75% increase if you work on Sundays or if you work on a holiday. All these percentages are depending on the value of the hour depending on the wage. Then we have Sundays. In Sundays, we have two different categories. We have an ordinary Sunday, okay, which is 75%, and we have if it's Sunday or holidays, but during night. Remember that it starts at 10 p.m. So this would be 75% plus another 35% increase, which will be 110%, okay? Then we have vacations. All this is something that as an employer you have to take into account in order to start saving the money for the end of the year or to pay, in our case, vacations. So when they talk about provisión mensual, this is something that the employer has to take into account, because at the end of the year, you will get 15 days of payment, consecutive days of payment for every year of service, okay? There are some cases where the employee would like that vacations in money. So you would have to pay him those 15 days like if he was working. So this person may go to vacations. You will pay those 15 days, consecutive 15 days. And in case it is a minimum wage, it's a minimum wage, you can do that. Okay, so in case it's a minimum wage, it would be 30,738. Okay, now we have something called prestaciones a cargo del empleador. If you're an employer, this is where you have to pay. There are cesantías, which means that when the person is without a job, or in Spanish is cesante, you need to pay this, okay, twice a year, okay? And it's a salary for every year of service. The thing is that las cesantías, you have to deposit this money in a fund twice a year. And there are some very special days where you have to put make those deposits, okay? And there are some interest of those cesantías, which are 12% a year on the value of whatever the person has in their fund, okay? And it is whatever you get by December 31st of every year, okay? Remember that all these values are depending on the wage, okay? This, like every month, in order to get this, you need to save, as an employer, you need to save 8,000 pesos. In order to get this at the end of the semester, you need 68,000 pesos, okay? And it's pretty much 1 month of salary for every year. So you just need to get the salary and divide it by 12, which are all the 12 months. We also have a prima de servicios. There are two mandatory by law. Okay, some employers will give you or like to give an extra prima de servicios, okay? It is very rare, but this says a lot about an employer. It's giving an extra prima de servicios, okay? And it's also a month of salary, and you need to pay them to the employee, every semester, like on June 15th and the first days of December of every year. You need to pay them 15 days, okay? So it's the prima, it's one salary a year, but you need to divide them into two. One paid every 15 days and the other one on the first 20 days of December, okay? This is something that they count on every year, okay, and every semester. This is also dotación. This is also the uniform or things that the employee needs to develop their work. Okay? And by law, you need to give them a pair of shoes and a uniform every 30th of April, 31st of August, and 20th of December. This is something that you need to give them 3 times a year. Okay? And you also, by law, this is given to the people that earn 2 or less minimum wages a month. Okay? Of course, by law, it also says that this person will receive their dotación, okay, or their uniforms, if they have been with the company for at least 3 months. Prestaciones a cargo de terceros y parafiscales. This is a different category that we're going to use, and it changed a little in 2014. There was a change. Now, if you're an employer and you have 2 or more employees, then you would be exempt of paying health. Okay? If those employees get or earn less than 10 minimum wages. Okay? So that is very important. So we're going to have to create conditional statements depending on the people's salary, whether or not you will have to deposit or make a contribution to their health. Okay? In case of pensions, we do have to make a 12%. Okay, this is done with the employer and the employee. So it's the deposit has to be 16% of the total wage, but 12% is for the employer and 4% is for the employee. Okay, so every month you have to multiply the wage times 12%, and you have to save that money because you have to pay, deposit that in their pension plan. Okay, this is their pension plan. We also have those risks, okay, or labor risks every month that the employer has to pay. So as you have noticed, an employer has to pay a bunch of things. It changed. Now they don't have to pay health or parafiscales, which are these ICBF, which is Bienestar Familiar, and SENA, okay, and Cajas de Compensación Familiar. We're not going to have to pay this unless you have less than 2 employees, and those employees earn more than 10 minimum wages. Okay, so that's like the only big change for after 2014. Okay, but you have to take into account, depending on the type of labor or work, the risk. Okay, and this is a percentage that you need to pay according to a set of parameters depending on your job. Okay, if it's risky or not. The last thing is subsidio familiar. This is not paid by the employer. This is something that when people pay cajas de compensación, okay, or the government receives the money from cajas de compensación, those cajas de compensación, okay, their compensation funds will give you a subsidy, like a family subsidy, okay? And this is only given for people that earn less than 2 minimum wages, okay? So this is very helpful, and it can be used for groceries, it can be used for education, etc. Okay? So this is important because you guys are going to develop a complete payroll. Let me show you what you are going to look at for next activity. Okay, you are going to develop a payroll very similar to this one, okay, where you have to create the name, the last name, the wage per day, which is, as I said, divided by 30, the wage per hour, and the transportation subsidy in case this person receives transportation subsidy, the amount of hours, okay, of ordinary hours. All this is overtime or extra hours, quantity of night hours, and then you're going to get a bunch of totals. The vacation that this person receives, and you will create the formula for each one. Okay, then the uniform. Okay, then severance pay and severance interest pay, the bonus, provisional total. Of course, the 3 uniforms are something that we kind of like establish. If you're an employer and your uniform with shoes is 50,000 pesos, then you need 3, and this is something that you need to provide per month. Okay? And then we have other payments. And here in health, we are going to change a little bit this, because this will create a conditional statement. Okay? Here you have to create a conditional statement, the retirement plan or pension plan, the category, if it's A, B, C, or this, professional risk, cajas de compensación, ICBF, and SENA, just in case that you have one employee. Okay? So if you have one employee, you're going to have to do all this, which is my idea. We will do it later on that you don't have an employee. But we are going to create, right over here, we're going to create a new one that is called amount of employees. And depending on this number, we are going to create a conditional statement on these cells if we have to pay or not. Okay? So a person that their wage is 689,000, which is not anymore because this changed, the provision, monthly provision for the employer is about 1,129,000. This is something that you as an employer have to pay. Okay? So hiring somebody for the minimum wage is actually hiring that person for this amount. Okay? So the first thing we need to do is pretty much understand how the law works, understand each parameter that you need for the payroll, and understand what are the conditions in order to pay either health or other payments like professional risk and cajas de compensación, etc. Okay? So good luck with that, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.